Hello friends, this video on integers part 13 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Now a common question that arises in your mind is, what is the reason behind learning the properties of multiplication? Because we have already learned the properties related to addition and subtraction of integers, and now we are going to talk about the properties of multiplication of integers. But why do we study these properties? Now the reason is very simple. If I ask you to calculate this value 8 into 53 into minus 125, now you can, using the tips, you can very easily find out if the product would be positive or negative, because here you have only one negative integer, so therefore the product would be negative. But my question is, how will you find the product? So to find the product, you would follow a process somewhat like this. Now very easily you can't say what would be 8 into 53. So first you would multiply 8 with 53, so let's say you get 424, and then you multiply this with 125, and then again you get something like this. So don't you think that this was a time consuming and tedious process? Yes, it was, right? So in this fashion you could actually find out the value of this product. Now once you are aware of these properties, how it helps is you get rid of spending so much of time and such complex process. Now there are high chances that you might even commit a mistake while performing this kind of multiplication. So the chances to make mistakes are more, it is more time consuming, and it is more complicated. Therefore, we will make use of these properties to make our calculations simpler. So finding product will become a lot simpler using these properties. So let us look at these properties which will make our calculations easier. So the multiplication properties that we would discuss are closure property, commutative property, associative property, distributive property. So more or less the same properties, but this time we will talk specifically for multiplication. Multiplicative identity of a number. So before we talk about any of the properties, first let us talk about multiplication by 0, because this is very interesting. Whenever you multiply an integer with 0, the result is always 0. Are you surprised that how can that happen? But yes, that's the truth. Let us look at examples. So let us say 6 multiplied by 0 gives 0. Minus 12 multiplied by 0 gives 0. 0 multiplied by 0 gives 0. Minus 19,676 multiplied by 0 gives 0. So you take any number you want to. Once you multiply it with 0, the result is always 0. Now are you curious to know why is it so? It is not a magic. It is a very logical thing because of which it is 0. So let us draw the number line and try to understand this. So let us say this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and so on. Now let us take the first example, that is 6 multiplied by 0. Now what is the meaning of 6 multiplied by 0? Now earlier we have learned that when we say 6 multiplied by 1, that means 6 is multiplied or 6 is added one time. So one time added means from 0 you will take one jump till 6. Right? Now when we say 6 multiplied by 0, that means 6 is added 0 times. That means 6 is not added at all. So where do you reach? You do not take any jump. So you start with 0 and you remain at 0. And therefore your result is 0. So whether you talk about minus 12 multiplied by 0, that also means that minus 12 is added 0 times. That means minus 12 is not at all added. So you are still at 0, and therefore any integer when multiplied by 0 gives a 0. Now the property that we will talk about is closure property of multiplication. So let us talk about closure property of multiplication. So here also let's do multiplication of various integers and let's see what do we get as a result. So let's say minus 3 multiplied by 9. What do we get? Minus 27. Minus 13 multiplied by minus 10. What do we get? We get 1 plus 130. Minus 5 multiplied by 0, we get 0. 5 multiplied by minus 6, we get minus 30. Now in each of these cases, what we try to do is we try to multiply different types of integers. Sometimes we multiplied a negative integer with 0. Sometimes we multiplied two negative integers. Sometimes a negative and a positive. Sometimes a positive and a negative. And in each of the cases, we found that the result that we obtained, they were all integers. And this proved that the integers are closed under multiplication. That is, for all integers a and b, a into b is always an integer. So that is why they are called closed, because they are within their territory of integers. So one integer multiplied with another integer will give an integer. So they cannot go out of their territory. So they are closed under multiplication, and that is why it is called closure property. Next is commutative property. So when it comes to commutative property, again we talk about the same interchange of integers. So we say that for any two integers a and b, a into b is equal to b into a. So let us prove this with a lot of examples. So let us say we take two integers, 2 into 6. So the result is 12. Now if we reverse their order, that is 6 into 2, then also we get the same result. Similarly, you try with other integers. Minus 2 into 3 gives minus 6. Similarly, 3 into minus 2, this also gives minus 6. You talk about 14 into minus 2, which gives minus 28. Again, minus 2 into 14 also gives minus 28. You talk about two negative integers, that is minus 9 into minus 6, which gives 54. Minus 6 multiplied by minus 9 also gives 54. Minus 6 into 0 gives 0. 0 into minus 6 also gives 0. So in each of these cases, we see that 2 into 6 is equal to 6 into 2. Minus 2 into 3 is equal to 3 into minus 2. So basically, even if we change the order of the integers, the product remains the same. Therefore, we say that for any two integers a and b, a into b is always equal to b into a. And this is the commutative property of multiplication.
Thank you. Please visit examfear.com for free quality education. You can learn with a simple 4-step learning process wherein you can watch video lessons, you can ask your questions, you can refer notes, and you can take a free online test. We have content for class 6 to 12 on physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology along with practical videos. So please subscribe to our channel for daily updates. Thank you.